What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tess, if you don't know me already, and today I want to film a video that has been requested time and time again. I think that is because it's such a common condition and it affects so many people. It affects 415 million people worldwide. However, the crazy thing about it is that many people don't know they have it and they really don't know how to manage it. So what I'm talking about is rosacea, and again, this is a topic that you guys have been so curious about. It's something I honestly can't even remember touching upon in school. I think because, again, in aesthetic school, it's a short time period where we are trying to compact learning so much. We really don't always have the time to touch on really important things, and we definitely don't have the time to go in depth to a lot of skin conditions. And honestly, I think that's one of the interesting things about becoming an esthetician. People assume once you graduate, once you're licensed, once you are working on skin, you have all the answers and you know everything and you're an expert on everything, which I don't think is necessarily the case. We typically graduate with a baseline of education, and it really depends on the individual to go out and seek extra knowledge. And for me personally, I always like to be prepared and have as many answers for my clients as I can provide. There is no shame in doing extra research with your client, looking things up, and we are always learning and educating ourselves further. Even as I learn more about rosacea, I really get to understand more of the complexities involved, and there's quite a lot to know about it. So I want to film this video and help bring to light some maybe misconceptions or very important things I believe you should know about rosacea. This is not in any way intended to make you an expert in rosacea. It's really kind of just going to be a baseline of information, but I will also link some really great resources that I have found for rosacea education, and I always encourage you to go out and take more classes, whether they're in your area or online. I also have a podcast on rosacea, so I will link that below in the notes so you guys can listen to that. There's so much to cover with rosacea. Again, my podcast, I think it was about 45 minutes, and there was still more we could have talked about. But I really hope this video helps. I hope it helps you if you are struggling with rosacea or if you have clients who have rosacea, because it's bound to happen. It is such a prevalent thing. You're going to encounter it. So again, always better to be prepared. And if you do have rosacea yourself, it's super important you manage it. And that is true of all skin conditions, but especially rosacea. I think often people ask, like, what's the most cost-efficient way to manage rosacea? The most efficient way to manage it is with really solid home care. I would recommend very quality ingredients and working with a professional to ensure you are using things to help manage the condition. It is something many people may have a low case of rosacea, and it's something that's not super bothersome, so they don't quite know what it is and they just think maybe they'll grow out of it. You won't grow out of rosacea. It's something that needs to be actively managed with professional home care. When it's not managed, in the very worst scenario, it can require surgery, and it can, not to scare anyone, but it can result in some disfigurement of the face. So it's very important, and just as with most things, better to be proactive rather than reactive, because again, it won't simply go away, and it's very difficult to self-diagnose rosacea, I think in part because it is pretty misunderstood. So I'm going to get into a little bit about that. I really hope you guys like this video and it is educational. Thank you so much for your support as always, and let's get into it. All right, let's talk about rosacea. So first off, who are you most likely to see rosacea in? You are most likely to encounter it with people who look like me, people who have more fair Fitzpatrick types, people that might have blonde hair, reddish hair, very fair skin, blue eyes are the most prevalent people to get rosacea, and it most commonly occurs in women ages 30 to 50. So it's usually something that develops a little bit later in life. And I think this is one of the tricky things about it, since people aren't born with the condition and it can kind of seemingly like arise out of nowhere. It catches people off guard and they might not necessarily, again, know how to manage it or just think maybe this is something that's going to go away. Now, men can also get rosacea, though it's less common. However, men who do get rosacea usually suffer from a more severe rosacea condition. People who have higher Fitzpatrick types can also get rosacea, but it is less common. You are most likely going to see it again with people like me, and I actually don't have rosacea. I have some telangiectasia in my cheeks, but I don't have rosacea. So it's a very fine line, and for that reason I really strongly suggest having a dermatologist diagnose your rosacea clients, or if you are somebody who suspects you might have it, I really strongly suggest having that person get a official rosacea diagnosis from their dermatologist. It is always better to be safe than sorry, and as estheticians, as much as we can want to do the most and help somebody, it's really in their best interest to get a diagnosis from a doctor, and it's in your best interest so that you know how to manage the condition. And we can help people manage it really, really effectively. So we can play a very large role in managing rosacea, but again, we cannot diagnose, and I highly suggest working with a dermatologist and definitely getting that diagnosis to safeguard you and everything you are going to do moving forward with your rosacea client. Let's talk about triggers and what could potentially be causing rosacea. So the cause of rosacea really is unknown, but the strongest suggestion of a cause that we have is linked to the Demodex mite. And you're probably gonna want to go Google what a Demodex mite is, but don't. It's really gross, and we actually all have Demodex mites on our skin, but with rosacea clients, they have far more Demodex mites on their skin. Again, the cause is unknown, and the Demodex mite is just a suggestion. However, we have seen rosacea clients have 10 times more Demodex mites on their skin than people who don't suffer from rosacea. The reason these mites are so harmful is that they emit an enzyme called lipase. Lipase breaks down our human sebum, and it creates a lot of inflammation on the skin. It can heat the skin up to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's when you will notice the skin is possibly hot to the touch, and that person has a lot of visible redness or vascular damage, vascularity in their skin and their cheeks. Repeatedly heating up the skin like that is damaging because it is repeatedly distending the capillaries, and we see that vascularity, we see more redness over time when those capillaries repeatedly distend. A lot of times you'll hear the phrase broken capillaries. That's not actually correct. What's happening is the capillaries are distended, and over time, again, that can be very damaging. And it's the same reason somebody with rosacea wouldn't want to go for a walk in freezing cold temperatures, walk to hot yoga, and then come home and take a hot shower. It's repeated extremes and repeat heat exposure that is very damaging to the skin. So I know at this point you're probably thinking these mites are horrible. They're actually not damaging when kept under control, and that is why it's so important we manage rosacea as a condition and do the right things. The most important thing we can do is eliminate the food source of the mites, which is our human sebum. So you can do this by making sure you or your client cleanses twice a day, morning and at night, and you want to make sure you offer gentle exfoliation. So when I'm saying exfoliation, the last thing you would want to do is scrub your skin or use anything like St. Ives or Kylie walnut scrub. You want to use gentle exfoliation, and I want to get into more ingredients and topical things you can do to help manage the condition. Okay, let's talk about ingredients you can use that are specific for treating rosacea. One of the biggest things I notice with my rosacea clients is they have done a bunch of research on their own, and what they gather is all they need to do, and the main thing they need to do, is calm the skin. Yes, calming the skin, so important, but it's not going to effectively manage the condition if you are only using calming ingredients. You also really need to ensure that you are doing things to help control oil in your rosacea clients. So I think that's kind of like contradictory to what a lot of people think rosacea clients need. Rosacea clients really actually can benefit from gentle chemical exfoliants, so AHAs or BHAs. Glycolic in very low percentages is extremely effective for rosacea clients because glycolic, I know we think glycolic, oh, that's a peel, that's really harsh. I'm talking low percentages and really easing into it. But glycolic actually is very effective at eliminating lipase, which again is that enzyme that the mite secretes. So glycolic can be a fantastic ingredient to use with your rosacea clients. Salicylic can also be a really effective one. Lactic acid, I would say glycolic and salicylic are some that I favor, but maybe you are easing them into it with a little bit of lactic as well. I find one of the most effective ways to introduce these ingredients is in using things like cleansers with a very low percentage of glycolic or salicylic. Leave-on products, toners, serums can be very effective, and that's when it's like there's not a good or a bad in skincare. It's what is more effective for that type, that skin type and that person, because you really want to make sure you are using a gentle form of exfoliation, perhaps even on a consistent basis. They may have a gentle glycolic wash that they use once a day, and that is very effective again at controlling the oil and gently exfoliate. Calming, yes, calendula, chamomile, all good things, but not going to help you fully manage the condition. You also want to rebuild the skin, so things like ceramides, fatty acids, lipids, peptides, perhaps like a really nice nourishing moisturizer they can use in the morning time, and something they can use at night that helps to rebuild the skin. We don't want to overdo it with occlusives and oils because, again, we want to manage that oil. If the mite can feed off a ton of oil, the rosacea is going to persist. But something nice and nourishing, non-comedogenic would be my preference. And I actually use Glymed. I love Glymed for my clients because they offer so many ingredients and products that are specific to certain conditions, and they just have so many wonderful treatment products. So if you're struggling with finding the right things for rosacea, shoot me a direct message. I would prefer to take somebody as my client, but if you just want one or two things, I can help direct you toward my store and what to purchase. Again, rosacea though really is best managed, and it's just best to be in somebody's care. It's your face. It's not something you want to be cheap with. You definitely don't want to try to manage it with drugstore products. It's the last thing I would recommend, and you just want to make sure you are in the hands of a professional. So calming, rebuilding ingredients are wonderful. Oxygen is also another ingredient I love that can be very gentle. Climate actually has two really incredible products, an oxygen cleanser and an oxygen treatment moisturizer. When oxygen is present, that is kind of like the death of bacteria and oil. So I really like gentle forms of oxygen. The next most important thing I have to highly emphasize is sunscreen, and this goes for everyone. If you are my client, we have to be using sunscreen consistently before we're moving into any other ingredients and expensive products. Make sure you're wearing your sunscreen, but especially my rosacea clients, you want to almost over encourage it. And I encourage my rosacea clients, if they leave the house, to have some form of SPF on them at all times, so they can reapply at least every 2 hours if they are out and about, because heat and sun really are some of the main triggers for rosacea. We want to protect against that heat and that inflammation. When inflammation is present in the skin, it actually can create pathways for more bacteria. The next thing I have to hammer home, and this is for all of my clients, know sunscreen has to be part of the normal daily routine. If we're not using sunscreen, there's no point in talking about any other anti-aging tools or any other product you could possibly invest in for your skin. Is just not going to be worth the money if you're not protecting your skin. But especially my rosacea clients, I would encourage, if they leave the house, to have some form of SPF with them at all times, and they can reapply it at least every 2 hours if they are out and about. I would encourage a physical blocker, a physical SPF that's not going to trigger more inflammation in the skin. But it's really important to be super defensive and almost over encourage SPF with your rosacea clients, because that sun and that heat is actually so triggering for inflammation. This is also important for my acne clients. The sun and heat can trigger inflammation and encourage acne, also encourage rosacea. They're both inflammatory conditions. So minimizing that heat and sun is so crucial. When we have inflammation in the skin, it actually creates new pathways for bacteria, allergens, pollution, more things that will sensitize and compromise the skin. And we have to remember, this is very key, but clients with rosacea, their skin is already compromised. So we have to rebuild. It doesn't mean we can't use any exfoliants or anti-aging methods whatsoever. So when somebody is coming to you with rosacea, you have to know, this is really important, that their skin is already compromised. It's already undergoing almost like a constant state of inflammation. The capillaries are repeatedly distending, and they are undergoing a lot of repeat heat exposure and repeat trauma in the skin. So it's very important to wear your SPF for sure. That just has to be part of the game plan. Let's talk about ingredients to stay away from with rosacea. You want to stay away from heavy concentrations of essential oils, any type of like perfume in your products, or even your laundry detergent. I highly encourage like a free and clear laundry detergent. No dryer sheets, nothing that's laden with fragrance and going to stick around on your towels and your pillowcases and again trigger inflammation. You also want to avoid high concentration of alcohol in your skincare. You also want to, again, avoid any intense physical or chemical exfoliants. Anything like scrubby or abrasive, I would steer clear from and simply opt for either like enzymatic exfoliation, I didn't mention, but can be really great for rosacea clients. Gentle enzymes, gentle AHAs, BHAs are what you want to use in terms of exfoliation. And then lastly, this isn't like on any typical list of things to avoid for rosacea, but I just wanted to make it really clear. You want to use products that are specifically intended to treat rosacea. Somebody with sensitive skin can actually use products that are formulated for rosacea skin, but somebody with rosacea shouldn't just rely on sensitive products. So products you see with the label like for sensitive skin, maybe it's fragrance free, that's wonderful, but it's not going to help you actually manage the condition. So with rosacea, I highly suggest, this is like my #1 tip, with rosacea or any chronic skin condition, work with a professional and make sure you are actively managing the condition and using the right ingredients, because again, it's so much easier to use the right things early on rather than pay for it down the line. And again, the consequences of rosacea going unmanaged can be significant. So you want to act on it and treat it as you would any other medical condition. You wouldn't look for the best shortcut, or maybe you would, I don't know. But it would be my best advice to manage it wisely and work with somebody who has an expertise in treating rosacea. I almost forgot to mention this, but again, we do have that acne subtype with rosacea, so you might notice that pustular acne that's not to be treated the same way as normal acne. You might treat it with a number of things. One of my favorite treatments for rosacea clients is a sulfur mask. You want something that's well formulated, and again, Glymed has a really beautiful sulfur mask that is great for calming inflammation. So even if your rosacea client isn't noticing pustules, they may want to do a weekly treatment mask to calm that inflammation. Glymed's is fantastic. You will notice, like, you will see a noticeable difference in the inflammation before and after using the mask. But the sulfur mask treatment can also be used to spot treat pustules, rosacea pustules, and you don't want to go as heavy-handed as you would like a traditional grade 2 or grade 3 acne client. You want to slowly introduce actives because, again, the skin is compromised. It can be sensitive. You may use gentle concentrations of salicylic. Again, my preference and a great way to start out would be to use salicylic in something like a cleanser that's like a gentle, low percentage. It's a wash-off treatment product. You might also use a benzoyl peroxide wash that is, again, a low percentage and something that's going to wash off. It's not going to be as potent as, for example, like a serum that stays on the skin for a prolonged period of time. You also might try, if you are struggling with acne rosacea, an oxygen treatment. Those are some of my favorite treatments for acne rosacea. And again, Glymed has some really fantastic oxygen treatments that will kill that bacteria, but won't necessarily dry out the skin as much as, say, you were on an acne protocol with a salicylic toner, a benzoyl peroxide leave-on, and using things that are more drying. You can still use them in moderation, but again, the moderation really is the key. Next, I want to talk about foods and how they can be so impactful for those with rosacea. And again, the cause is unknown and there's no cure. So the best thing we can do is manage the symptoms, make sure we are using the correct home care, and really managing what we eat and what we do in our lifestyle to manage rosacea. I think one of the tricky things about rosacea is that actually quite a lot of healthy foods, like traditionally healthy foods, can actually impact rosacea because they have a high histamine content. So I'm talking foods like spinach, avocado, lima beans, eggplant, tomatoes, red plums, meat. Dairy is another one for sure. Yogurt, cheese, sour cream, and then of course anything that is going to invoke heat, spicy foods, hot teas, hot chocolate, like hot anything, hot Thai food, hot Indian food, foods that use a lot of, you know, warming spices, chocolate, alcohol, I hate to say it, red wine, champagne, bourbon, gin. Alcohol in particular can really cause our capillaries to distend, so we will notice more flushing, and again, it's that repeat trauma and repeat inflammation that is the most damaging. And just to be real, most times when you're telling people this information about food, they're not happy to hear it. Nobody wants to be told what to eat, and I've never actually had a client that was super thrilled to eliminate these seemingly random things, especially if they're trying to be health conscious. It's super frustrating when you are trying to be health conscious to be told you can't have things like bananas or spinach, and we want people to be happy. We don't want to attach too much stress to the diet. We don't expect them to be perfect, and you know, that's another reason why it's so important to have skincare to help you manage and mitigate some of the lifestyle decisions. But again, I think having this information is power, so perhaps instead of having like an avocado toast and a hot coffee every day for breakfast, they can at least be aware and perhaps modify where it makes sense, maybe having like cool herbal tea and, you know, some fruit that doesn't include bananas or red plums, and just making better lifestyle decisions where it makes sense for them, I think is the most helpful thing you can do as an esthetician. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the lifestyle choices that can affect rosacea. One, stress is so key. It lowers the immune capacity hormone, and therefore rosacea is already an immune response. So stress is going to heighten any chance of flares, and just in general, stress is one of the most damaging things for our skin. It increases our cortisol. It can lead to increased oil production. When you have more oil production, again, the mites will feed on that. So stress is something I like to talk about with every client. I like to ask where their stress level is at, and even just pose the question back to them, are there things you think you could do to help you manage the stress? Because there's no such thing as having a perfect medical grade skincare routine and then being completely stressed out and not taking care of yourself and just having incredible skin. I mean, it happens with some people, but the lifestyle piece, I believe, is so huge. Your level of stress, how you take care of yourself, what you fuel your body with, it all is connected, and that's why I really take a holistic bird's eye view of every client, because it's, again, not just about what they're putting on their skin, though that has a huge effect. It's about the whole picture and the whole person. Two, we touched on it, but sun, UV rays damage the skin and increase inflammation, which is what we want to avoid with rosacea. Next, hormone balance, very key. Hormone balance plays a role in barrier function, and somebody who has a significant imbalance with their hormones may have more compromised skin. They can talk to their doctor about supplements that may help, and they should try to ensure they are not consuming foods that would contribute to hormone imbalance, such as dairy or meat products that have added hormones. They can also look at any recent changes they have had in birth control. Those can definitely play a major role in rosacea triggers and managing the condition. And they can also always speak to their doctor or a health practitioner about having their hormones checked. You want to avoid, often I see rosacea clients that live in really cold places and they are going, you know, inside, out, they're taking hot showers, going into colder temperatures, and they are doing a lot of extremes as far as like having the heat on in their home and then walking straight into very cold temperatures. That's something that's hard to mitigate, but it's something to be aware of. I also really suggest using cooling tools in the routine at home as often as possible. And I'm not talking about just straight up sticking ice on the face, because again, that's too extreme and can be too damaging to the capillaries that are distending. But cooling things like cooling globes, cool compresses, keeping their skincare in the fridge is a big tip that will help calm that inflammation. And again, we don't want extreme cold either, but cooling things can definitely be beneficial. Things like hot yoga, hot tubs, saunas, those would all be things that I would not recommend for somebody with rosacea. And just in general, what I would really like to reiterate is just being wise about extreme temperature changes. So in general, extreme temperature changes are one of the biggest things I would be conscious of, and any really heated activities such as hot showers, steam rooms, sauna, hot yoga, really intense, frequent hot workout, so HIIT training, running for extended periods of time. Those are things I would prompt your client to consider in moderation to help them manage the condition. Doesn't mean they can never go on a run or never do a HIIT workout, but again, in moderation, and definitely having those calming tools when they get home, maybe a cool compress and cool washing of their face and having their skincare in the fridge are definitely helpful. Alright guys, that is the end of this video. I really hope you loved it and it was educational. If it was in any way, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you go. Sorry if it was a little bit long. Maybe in the future I will break up the topics in this video into longer segments, such as a segment on food and rosacea, segment on heat and rosacea, segment on sun exposure and rosacea. But I hope this was sort of a good overview. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Leave a comment if there is a video you would like to see from me in the future, whether it is related to me and my business, a certain topic in skincare, or aesthetics in general. Please let me know. I love hearing your feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.